talk about.
All right, we're right in. We're on.
Okay.
How do you feel?
I'm feeling all right. My question is, how do you feel from last night?
I feel great.
Yeah, you look a little glazed.
Well, it's probably all that food I just ate.
Yeah, right.
My uncle knows how to
Yeah,
cook.
it had nothing to do with. Yeah, okay.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
That's what I thought.
Plead the fifth.
Right.
So what do we got here? Barbados rum.
Okay, so my question is, so how are you going to do an intro? What are you going to start with?
This is it. We're in.
I know, but like you're going to say, hey, the reason behind all
Oh,
this?
yeah.
Okay.
Gladly. So,
All right.
ladies and
Get
gentlemen,
with it.
for those joining us,
Don't mention any names.
we got
what? Go ahead.
we got. Don't worry. And this is one take, so you don't have to be perfect here, Danny boy. All right, we got Dan here today. He's on to talk about a trip he took, a cross country trip. He took on his motorcycle all by his lonesome, like a big boy. That was, how long was it?
2 months. 2 months. It took me 56 days.
And
That's
how many
2 months.
How many miles?
I think total so far, about 15,000. It was about 12,000 total on the trip itself, but 15 to date. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll let you get to it.
Yeah. No, it's just a kind of an interesting story for me. It really is, because where it all started, and I really have to attribute this, and I did in one of my posts on Instagram.
May I interrupt?
Go ahead.
Is this straight?
Make yourself at home.
Is this good straight? Is that how it goes down?
You sure you're going to be able to handle that?
I don't know. We're about to see.
Okay.
Continue.
He's pouring himself a glass of rum, in case anybody's wondering. But no, it all started, I mean, we can get deep into this, but it starts back with a friend of mine who kind of introduced me to motorcycles, and that's where I attribute all this to. And his name is Bob Reifinger. He's an old friend of mine I knew from high school. We all eventually had motorcycles, and we rode a lot, went to motocross races. He raced semi-pro. So that's where my interest in motorcycles came in a sense, and that kind of plays a role in this, I believe. But where it all started just recently was, I think my job had gotten to the point where, working 24/7, waking up to it, falling asleep to it, going to work, staying there 14, 16 hours a day, sometimes every day for months.
Construction.
Construction. But eventually it played a toll on me where I started rethinking over this past winter of 2018, like January, February. I had went to see a friend out of state up in Duluth, and we started talking about things, and this whole plan sort of started rolling into my mind about there's 8 or 9 people that I know through across the nation, D.C., Tennessee, 2 people, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Longmont, Colorado, San Diego, Bodega Bay, California, Bozeman, Montana, and Duluth, Minnesota. And I thought about this over the winter when we weren't working. And then I thought about how much I love riding that bike I got and how it changes me and any motorcyclist will know this, what I'm talking about, is when you get on that thing and it takes every bit of problem or stress you have in your mind away instantly. The minute you get on it and start riding, and it doesn't matter where you go or where you're headed, it instantly takes the stress away. It's unbelievable. My joke is that I have now gotten rid of my therapist. I don't no longer need a therapist. But yeah, so that inspired me. There was a lot of things that came into play of my appreciation at work, my stress level at work, what I was taking on for what I was getting paid. Not to say that it was bad pay. It was just that what am I taking on personally and how it affected me. And I didn't know who I was anymore in all reality. I was just like a machine at one point, and I said to myself, it's not worth it anymore. I need something to rediscover myself in a sense, or figure out who I was or where I wanted to be the rest of my life. Is this what I want to continue doing? So there was a lot of key roles with that, and it just came into play where eventually I thought about this trip, and I thought, hey, I wanted to go down to Tennessee initially to see a guy I knew. I met through construction. He lived down there, and then I thought, wait a minute, I can go to Tulsa. I got a friend in Colorado. I got people all over the country, and it's perfect. Springtime, do this loop all the way down there where it gets warmer. I leave here when it's cold. I got down there. It was perfect weather, and I got down there in the warmth, and it worked out excellently. Everybody I saw, and it was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting stuff.
So where's the first major stop? DC, right?
First major, no. Oh, no. I had to stop at the White House.
That's DC.
No, my mother's house. It's white. We call it the White House. That's right down the road from my house. So that was actually one of my first stops, or was my first stop.
5 minutes into the trip.
5 minutes into the trip. Got to see Mom, get a picture, a photo op, and take a pic. And then it was actually when I came home, it was my last stop before I went to my house. I figured that's my first and my last stop. But then it was, then after that, it was the actual White House. I had a friend of mine's son was going to college down there, and he was staying right in the heart of D.C. It was pretty cool. So I toured around, did the White House tour, the whole monument thing. Just wandered around D.C. for about 4 days, and then off I went down to Tennessee.
And you were just nomading it, like it was
After
just
that,
it was just on the wing, off the cuff.
And it was planned. The only real planning that I did for this motorcycle trip was what I needed and the real basics of what I needed. Okay, dry pair of shoes, pair of socks, the basics, couple of T-shirts, whatever, a good leather coat, some gloves, a helmet, the real basic stuff. And I took a tent and a backpack with me. And, of course, a credit card comes into play there. But I didn't really plan it as far as where I'm going, what days I'm going, what I'm going to do, Mm-hmm. I mean, in today's technology, from where I came from, this whole iPhone or technology and the smartphone is it. You don't need anything else.
Yeah.
In my world, I mean, I see these guys that plan these trips out and spend months, like, mapping out the trip, where they want to be. No, I was shoot from the hip the whole way. That's the other thing that made it great it was wherever I felt like, whenever I felt like going. You could stop along the way, see anything you wanted. You saw cool things. You pulled over. You talked to people. You did whatever you wanted every day. It was like a complete freedom.
Yeah, I think
and that made it just extra kind of special because, when you only have 2 weeks and you only have a certain amount of time, and you get on the highway and you book it to one place just to get there and say you've been there. No, that's exactly the exact opposite of why I wanted to do it in my own way. And that was, I think, probably 11,000 of those 12,000 were secondary roads. All the little towns you could ever imagine in the entire country. And you met all the people and all the culture, all the diversities and all the different types, rich, poor, black, white, you met everybody from secondary little towns.
Mm-hmm.
Then you really get the real taste of the heart of America. You stop in these cities, you don't really get a taste of what America's all about.
Yeah.
You really do when you have the time to stop and sit down and talk to people. And they would almost interrogate me sometimes. Like, they'd see the Pennsylvania plates. Oh, yeah, where are you going? California. It was pretty exciting just saying that. After a while, you didn't want to tell anybody because every day you'd meet sometimes 100 people. But I would interrogate them instead. They're like, where are you going? What are you doing? And I'm like, no, wait a minute. Where are you from? What made you move here? What's your political status? Where'd you go to school? What are you doing for a living? And I'd almost interrogate them to get a real taste of what people were like in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Not just from where we live or the state of Pennsylvania alone.
Yeah. That's, I don't hear, like, doing stuff like that. It helps kind of dissolve of, like, a small-mindedness of, like, getting in your same ruts and hanging with the same people. And it gets really easy to think that, like, this is it.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's what I tell my son. For those who don't know, this trip started in Pennsylvania and went south into D.C., Virginia, Kentucky. Where else today? Up Tennessee, Oklahoma, I may have missed one or two states there, but you get the general idea.
Colorado.
Oklahoma, up through Kansas, into Colorado, back down through Colorado into Utah, back up through Utah into Moab, back down through Utah into Arizona, southern Utah, southwest Utah, Arizona, California, then all the way up the coast, and into Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, Dakotas, Minnesota. That kind of route gives you a general idea where it went for those who don't know what we're talking about here, but eventually back home. But yeah, so that's what kind of led me into taking this trip, was the stress level, where my life was, financially, psychologically. Everything just played a key role in it, but it seemed like the whole plan just melted together perfectly. It was like two gears that combined in perfect sync. Everything, it seemed like it was meant to be in a way, for me, because, financially I was okay. I had another job already. I loved riding that motorcycle. Springtime, friends all across this country. It just, the more I thought about it, the more it worked out perfectly. I didn't really have to plan where I was going. I had destinations along the way, and I would just play around as I went between those destinations.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling my son, was that's what made it great. If you just went out there and took a road trip like that and just started driving with nobody to see, a little different. But if you have destinations along the way, like if you really wanted to, you could make them in 2 days, but you took 2 weeks to get between the destinations. That was the cool part, because you always knew that somewhere in that country you had somebody to go see.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd still do it. I would still done it, but it kind of added to the trip in a sense,
And it seems like the fact that it was like you had a few people, but that few was just the right amount. Because like if you were stopping to have to see like 20 people, like you said, you're already seeing a bunch of people and talking to people every day, but now you kind of just have like 4 or 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
When it's like, okay, and I know you knew there was going to be time in between those to just do your thing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And that, like I said, and it did, just like you said, it added to it. And it was perfect. It came out perfectly. And the trip itself, in a nutshell, I don't know that it could have been any better. Psychologically, physically, financially, timing-wise in my life. It just, the more I think about it, it was unbelievably perfect. But it's something I always said, that if you really want to see what this country's about, you got to do a trip like that. You don't necessarily have to do it on a motorcycle, but just to do it, to meet the people across this country and see what it's all about, rather than what social media tells us and the stereotypes that we have. I mean, let's face it, we all have them, but some people deny it. But anyway, no, it really gives you a taste of what this country is about, rather than looking on social media and believe in that box, which I call a TV, in our homes, that tells us what we should be, what we should buy, what we should eat, how we should live, what kind of car we should drive. Now, get out and see this country. It really makes you understand that it's not just in the little small town that you live in. It really makes you cultured.
Yeah.
When you get back, it really teaches you a good, hard lesson.
Yeah.
And not to say that I haven't done it before. I mean, I traveled around the world. I've been to New Zealand, Australia, Hawaii about 6 times, Europe about 6 times, Jamaica, all over this country before. But for some reason, this trip alone had just really changed my perspective on life in general.
Yeah, I definitely saw it. Like seeing you, I stopped in when you got back, just popped in. And from that day and just since then, you seem like there's something a little different about you. Almost like you definitely loosened up.
Yeah, go ahead. Say the truth.
I'll say
Tell
it.
me what you want to say.
Because I know you could say the same thing about me, but I mean,
I can.
you're like a mentor. We talked about this
Yeah.
like last week. You're like a mentor to me. I've known you for quite some time, and we used to just like bitching at each other. And you had like, I don't know, you had a view of the world. You always, I still never forget. Everyone's an asshole until proven otherwise.
That's right. And that kind of still plays a part.
But like you still hold by that, and there's truth to it. But I think that like you loosened up that initial, like you're just not as combative, and you seem a little bit more willing to take in like other sides. Because like you said, just being around the same place for too long, you're like it just kind of puts you in a box, and you like think that this is all there is to it. And I speak.
Well, that's a valid point. But I knew better because I've been other places before, and it didn't really sink in. I think I got in that rat race again where that was my whole life anymore for the last 25 years at least that I traveled before. From the last time I traveled, I mean, did a trip like this, but this was beyond any other trip. But yeah, it does. It gets you into that grind, that daily grind that just eats you alive, and you don't know it. And I always said it's kind of like a headache. You know, you're working at a job or whatever, doing what you're doing all the time, and you get a headache. Eventually, you get a headache. Okay. And before you know it, you're like, I just deal with it mentally. Get over it. You have things to do. You're thinking about too much. You forget about it. And then the headache becomes every day, okay? Then after a while, maybe another year, then the headache becomes a migraine. You're like, all right, I got to take some aspirin for it or whatever. You mentally deal with it and you work around it. But before you know it, that migraine is there every day. And then one day that migraine's completely gone. And you're like, holy crap. You don't realize how slowly that pain came on to you. Mm-hmm. Then, and it's a migraine every day, but you mentally get over it, you deal with it, and you wake up to it. But then once that headache's completely gone, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, because it becomes
wow.
It becomes
you
your
didn't
normal.
realize how much it overwhelmed you.
Yeah, and it became your like new normal.
Yeah.
And like
right.
I say that a lot about, like, you hear that for people that like smoke cigarettes a lot, like when they quit, and it's like, wow, like I never knew I'd just feel this good. But they were so used to feeling like that all the time that they, like you're saying about the migraine, they get used to it. Or the same thing, like I had the same experience like when you start eating healthy and you just feel better, and it's like, oh, you just feel better. Yeah, you can, however you need that, and you just feel better, and it's like, oh, I didn't even know I was feeling bad. But until you get better, you see that other perspective.
Yeah. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was. I think that's the way it is for a lot of people. And we don't pay what it does is it's just like that pain that's where I was. That's where I was mentally. And I realized it. The beauty is that I realized it, and I said to myself, I got to make a change, and that's where the motorcycle came in. I had ridden 11,000 miles in the state of Pennsylvania alone the year before. And I mean, not just in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that thing just did something for me. That motorcycle had transformed my train of thought, and it gave me a chance to get a clear mind the summer before through those 11,000 miles, which isn't really a whole lot, but you know, there's guys out there that put a hell of a lot more in a summer, but they're, you know, retired or whatever.
Still, though, to do it.
But yeah, 11,000 miles. It was every weekend that I had spare, freed up. Every day. Some days after work, I'd put, 400 miles on. But that had got me the gear starting. Like, okay, I started thinking. It clears my mind. It gives you a clear mind to think, and that's where I started thinking about this trip. And then the winter, it started hitting home, and that's where eventually I started putting the plan together.
Do you think that's like a universal thing? Like for you, it's the motorcycle, but I feel like for everyone, there's something different.
Absolutely.
And I think
I would hope there is.
I think that's where like a lot of just the pain and struggle and hate comes from, because like people don't have something like that.
You gotta have something like that. You have to have an out. You have to have something to give yourself a sense of freedom or a sense of clear mind to be able to think about the daily grind or whatever it is that's troubling you.
To think about it, but also not think about it.
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
or think about it from just a different angle or something.
Yeah.
Like you said, you go, and as soon as you get on, it just switches off.
Yeah, it does. It's weird how it's automatically. It's fantastic how it works for me. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but for me,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
The
why.
second I get on there and the second I pull out of the driveway, it's like. I mean, there's times on this trip where I would just start screaming at the top of my lungs, riding down these roads, seeing the beauty and living the freedom. I would just, I mean, it it actually brought me. Don't tell anybody this, but it
Just
actually
those
brought me
listening.
to tears one day of how epic that trip was. And like I said, for a guy who's been around the world before, or practically around the world, and all of a lot of big places, that trip alone just really, I don't know what it was, but it really triggered my mind and it really put me into a great place. And yeah, tears one day, I remember. Got to kind of laugh because, don't tell anybody. Oh, you ride a Harley, you're a badass. No, we're all human, man. We're all human. So it did. And there was a lot of times where I'd just yell at and start laughing some days, just laughing in amazement of where I was at that moment, psychologically, mentally, physically. You're out there in the middle of Montana, some of the most beautiful country in the world, Colorado, Utah, deserts, mind-blowing places. And that was the cool part about being on a motorcycle was, when you're in a car or in a Winnebago or whatever, and you're driving around, it's a little different. Actually, it's a lot different. Now you're out there, you're almost like one with nature in a sense. Not like you're hiking, but it gives you a total different outlook of the beauty that you're looking at versus sitting in a car and looking at it.
Yeah.
A total different aspect. You're on a motorcycle, it blows your mind kind of feeling. For me, it did. But yeah, the way you look at that trip versus on a train, a bus, a car, versus a motorcycle, completely different. Completely different. And I'm sure there's other ways too, hiking or bicycling, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of time to think about
Yeah.
things, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. So
Yeah, I just think like people need that. Like people would be a lot more sane and a lot better to people. Like I said, it's not motorcycling for everyone or running or whatever. But
yeah, it's not the cure-all drug
it's-
for all your problems or whatever. But
like whatever it is. Like for some people it's art, other people it's rock climbing or whatever you choose to do. Like I think everyone kind of has something in them that they find that just let that take them. And like you, like I saw right away, it lightens you up.
yeah,
It
so
lightened
I
you
was
up.
an angry guy. No,
That's
I
one
know.
way to put
no,
it.
we. Yeah, go easy on me. No, it did. It changed me. My stress level, and that was where my stress level was. At that time when you talked about before, my stress level was very high, and the great thing is I realized it. I realized that I gotta have an out. I gotta change my life, and it's gotta be major. I just didn't know how to do it, and then this plan came together. It felt like it was for a reason.
Mhm.
Like it happened timing wise perfectly.
Yeah.
Like it's time to change and it's time to make an adjustment because it feels dead end. It wasn't about the money anymore. I didn't care about the security and living in that under that security blanket anymore. I was sick of it actually because of what it made me and what it created in me, and I wasn't enjoying myself. I was just a machine at one point. But yeah, so everybody's got to have something, but this did it for me. This did it for me. So yeah, any of you motorcycle enthusiasts out there, I know it's nice to do long trips, and I've been on those long trips, down to Tennessee or up to New York State, the Finger Lakes, the Adirondacks, Maine, whatever. But once you do a cross-country trip, that just it almost makes you feel like not that you're better than any other motorcycle rider, but you look at motorcycle riding in a completely different way after that. Even during it, it kind of makes you like a seasoned veteran in a sense, where you're out there on the open road and you've got miles and miles to put on. You've got no plan, and all the things you wanted to see, you can go see and do. I know that it's not for everybody, and I know that it's not something everybody can do. Fortunately, I was very fortunate that I could do it. But it's something that if you have the desire and you're afraid of something, don't be. Just come up with a simple plan: a credit card, an iPhone, a smartphone, a couple of maps, clean clothes, and a good attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's all you need. And get out there. It will transform your life, and I guarantee it. If it doesn't, there's something wrong.
I think travel, a lot of travel in general for people does that. Like for me, just going to Colorado kind of gave me some perspective. Like I said, I've talked on it on here before, but like of just like, oh, like there's different people and there's completely different ways of living and different mindsets, and like it just, like I said, it just dissolves your like a little bit of that closed-minded mindset of like if you live in the same place your whole life and you just get that like, oh, this is all there is. But like traveling and seeing it and seeing different people, meeting new people and seeing different things, I think it dissolves that. And like it puts a lot of things into perspective too. Like some I'm sure like when you got back you realize like when someone's bitching about something, we kind of talked about this last week, like when someone's bitching about something and it's just like you have that perspective of like, dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like what are you really bitching about right now? You know what I mean?
And that brings up a whole nother topic. This could get long-winded, but it just makes me think about, let's say, for instance, before I had left, I felt this connection between my son and I because he would come in, weeks before I'd left, and we would talk sometimes for hours. And we don't usually do that. I mean, we see each other there every day. We work there. But point is that, during this trip, I realized that, I need to, when I come back eventually, and I would think about this sometimes 100 times a day, but it was every day I would think about it was, I really need to sit down and listen to people and pay attention to what's going on in my life rather than my job.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, we're all guilty of it. Well, I shouldn't say all, but I would analyze this over and over in my head about how I reconnect. Even with my son, I felt a connection. Like, okay, I really felt connected. But on this trip, I thought we still have some connecting to do.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, we still see each other. We still made a strong connection before I had left. But I still really need to pay more close attention to family, friends, that kind of thing. And a lot of us don't because of our jobs. But so I vowed this whole trip. Eventually, towards the end of the trip, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to, talk to my mother more often, go see her more often, talk to my son, my family, my friends, and really get connected. But the weird part is the day I come home, I'll never forget it. And it stuck with me for like 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I was in this like glazed state of mind where people were calling me, hey, come on over. We want to talk about your trip. We want to hear what you did. And it wasn't so much about the trip that bothered me. It was just, I still am analyzing what it was. I didn't want to talk to anybody. For weeks, I'd sat at home and just, my son would make fun of me because like he'd come home and see me sitting on the porch in my underwear, drinking iced tea. Like, what the hell are you doing? Nothing. I don't want to do anything. Why don't you? No, I don't want to talk to nobody. So it reversed on me, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm still not sure why, because I think it may have put me in this euphoric state of mind, that trip.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much it changed me. And I didn't want to, part of the reason might have been, I didn't want to hear about people's petty bullshit anymore, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear about your pathetic life, how you're telling. I don't know whether they're bragging or complaining sometimes, But I didn't want to hear about, I got trouble with this and that, the pathetic things that people complain about.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to hear it anymore from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even people that were inquisitive about the trip, I didn't want to talk about it too much at that point. And this right now is really the first time I really talked about it since then.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only 6 months ago, but yeah, it had transformed me, and I'm still trying to work through that. Nobody really wants to hear about a trip like this, except people that are either interested in it or have done it before.
Mm-hmm.
Because in general, I learned that on my way back, people didn't care. It was funny because when you're going to California, they're like, "Holy cow, you're going to California!" Like it's, something out of a movie or something. Like you're going to California. But once I got to California, nobody asked anymore, which was fine with me because I didn't want to tell a story. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'd go, "Oh, here's one of the stories that kind of changed me from the stereotype type of people that sometimes we become, or some people we may know." And here's one of the most epic points that I explained to people about stereotyping, and that is, I'm in Longmont, and I go to the grocery store to get some water or whatever, some drinks. And I come out, and I park the motorcycle right out front, right? And so this lady comes out, some older lady. "Oh, I see you're from Pennsylvania." Yeah, what are you doing here? I started talking to her, and that was back when it was still exciting to tell your story. And she was a nice lady, too. But so while I'm talking to her, this guy comes out, and I see him out of the corner of my eye. Right? Now, you're talking the Pee Wee Herman movie type guy, where you go in the biker bar, and this guy is gnarly. This guy is badass looking. You're like, this is what people think the Harley guy looks like.
Yeah.
Okay? He's wearing a leather jacket with a torn off shirt with tattoos. I mean, muscles. It could probably rip you open and tear you to pieces, Real badass looking guy. I mean, he's got the hair, the look, the mean looking face. And he comes out and he sees my back of the motorcycle, and back on the back I had there hashtag PA to CA, and that was Pennsylvania, California. And so he saw that and he realized what it was. A lot of people didn't know what it meant, but he looks right at me while I'm talking to a lady, and he looks right at me and he says, "Hey, you doing that right now?" I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am." And he looked at me like this mean look, like he was going to say something like, I don't know, I can't say what, but, and he says, "Do you need anything?" I said, "No, man, thanks." But he goes, "No, really, anything. You name it, anything I could help you with." And at that moment, I realized that, most people look at these badass Harley guys, and maybe it was because I was riding a Harley to go out there. Harley's got this thing where it's kind of like a brotherhood, even though you don't know people, they'll pull over for you at any given time and help you out. Or all motorcyclists will. They will. Motorcycles have a thing where, I think, where they all wave to you, or they see you on the side of the road just looking at something. They'll say, "You okay?" They give you the okay sign.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, "Yeah," you wave to them. They'll keep going, but they will stop.
Just lost some kind of audio.
How about now?
It still works. It's just lagging. Oh, well, our levels are
all
good,
right.
So you don't need those if you don't want to wear them, because we're good now.
Okay, so anyway, he says, "Anything, you need anything?" I said, "Man, I tell you what, I am touched." And at that moment, I felt like Pee Wee Herman. Where, in the movie, like, all of a sudden, they're like, "All right, you're an all right guy." You stereotype people, and you tend to think just by the way they look or how they dress or what they do for a living. It thinks it comes with, "Oh, they're bad. Oh, they're mean. Oh, that guy's whacked out. There's something wrong with him." Or this lady's, whatever. We tend to stereotype. And that's when, one of those moments where, like, okay, this proves my point, is that, you can't judge people by how they dress or how they look or what they do or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get to know people and then make a decision on,
Yeah.
you know. And that was one of the most kind of ones that stuck out in a sense, because that guy he was dressed to the T, to the nines. He had the full regalia as far as the badass Harley looker.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was cool. It was a touching moment. I'm like, man, I thank you. And then he goes, all right, come on, let's ride. I'm going that way. I'll ride with you a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
That's neat.
Yeah. So I got a picture of him.
I think too, even giving people like chances, like even if someone does something for the first time you meet them, I've learned this, like you never know what kind of day someone's having. Like someone could be having a shit day and everything's going wrong, and they take it out on you. And to me, like it's even like, all right, like is that what this is, or is that like this type of person? So I think even kind of extending it to that benefit of the doubt and being like, is this you, or is it something more that caused you to, you know, lash out or do whatever, cut you off in traffic, flip you the bird, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's another reason why this trip helped me. Was you tend to look at things a whole lot differently. You know, we got stuck in this mindset a lot of times of, you know, what we do for a living every day and over again, and what we become. We've got to get out there and really understand ourselves and what we actually have, rather than sit around and bitch and complain about it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I was thinking about today, is like people just kind of bitching in their like situation or whatever is wrong. And it was like, it got me thinking about accountability. And I was like, that's kind of the beautiful thing about accountability. And like, in the same thing, the way it sucks is that it's a two-way street. Like if your life sucks, you have a shitty job or you don't have a job and this and that, like people try to bitch or put it on other people. And I feel like there's something that like they like, it's their fault. Like at the end of the day, they're accountable. But the beautiful thing is like, if you're on the other, like you're also accountable for changing that. And like it gives you that, like that's kind of the beautiful thing. So like you're saying about people just kind of bitching and moaning, you don't know sometimes if they're complaining or if they're trying to brag. It's like just take that accountability and like realize that you're the one. Like this isn't going to change by sitting here bitching. Nothing gets done by that.
And that's where I was with this trip. I could sit here all the rest of my life. What I always say is, we wake up with choices every day. Which choice are you going to make? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And people try to act like it's like not on them, or like the choice was made by someone else.
Yeah, blame game. Yeah, sure, I've heard that all my life.
So it's like that's what I was thinking about. Like there's accountability, and it works both ways. If you're in a shitty position, you're accountable. But if you're doing great, you're killing it, you're doing what you want to do, you're happy, that's also on you too.
Yeah.
And like people just want to put it off on someone else. They don't want to bear that responsibility of like, all right, it's up to me.
Yeah, interesting point. Very interesting point. But yeah, so the trip, let's see. Transformation-wise, it really had changed my life. It was really a no-brainer. I mean, if you're a motorcycle enthusiast, or anybody out there who's a motorcycle enthusiast, it really was a no-brainer for me. I'm like, look, I'm just going to get on and go and figure it out as it goes. I'm not going to sit here and plan it all out, because if something does go by plan, I'll get worked up and I might get upset. I didn't care about that. I just figured I got destinations. I got a credit card. I got a phone. I got all the technology I ever need. I got a motor. I mean, you know, I think about people like people would say to me, oh, that's unbelievable. I can't. No, really what's unbelievable is back in the 1850s when people were leaving their houses here in eastern United States to cross the United States in wagon train.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. I sit here and look at his phone. I could tell you exactly where I am GPS-wise. I give you the coordinates. I could tell you where a gas station is, a diner, a motel. I got a whole world right here in my hand.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a no-brainer for anybody. So if that's your fear, don't let that stand in front of you. It's nothing.
It makes it too easy.
Yeah, this trip is so easy, believe it or not. But then they say, then you get the people like say, how do you do it? You just have to sit on that motorcycle for like 2 months straight. I said, hey, people sit in an office chair every day for 10 hours a day. Which chair would you rather sit in? Seeing some of the most beautiful Rocky Mountain scenery, or Colorado, or Utah desert and California coastline for 10 hours a day? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather take that.
But it was kind of like, here was the other aspect was, is that, you know, I always said, and it is kind of, it gets physically tiring, you know, 2 months on the road. And there's people that do it for a year at a time or longer. I mean, you see a lot of people traveling. But here was the other thing, how I describe the pain, and that was, it was kind of like when you're a little kid and you're playing a soccer game with all your friends and you're so excited, and you get kicked in the shin, like, ow, that hurts at
Probably
the
by
moment,
Dan.
but you totally forget about it because in the excitement.
Yeah.
And that's the way this trip was. It was just so exciting. You didn't realize how tiring it was till the end of the day, and you stopped and you got off. You're like, holy shit, am I beat?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't think of it. The next day you would wake up and go right back at it again. The excitement was there every day.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird because, not weird, but it was kind of interesting because I hit some low lows in my mind, and I hit some unbelievable highs. But a trip like this takes you on an emotional roller coaster ride where some days you leave places that are so unbelievable that you're seeing on a motorcycle. And that's the other beauty is when you see it on a motorcycle, it really blows your mind. But you would leave places or friends, and then you felt like you were leaving home forever.
Mm-hmm.
And you would get out in the middle of Utah somewhere, and it would be kind of lonely. And you would almost get depressed. Like, man, I feel like I left my family and all my friends behind in that last town, and I'm never going to see them again. But then around the next corner, this scenery would, like, you'd have to just pull over, and it would take you an hour to absorb it. And it would just blow your mind. And you're like, okay, all right, that was unbelievable. And then you're like, all right, nothing could top that. And then 100 miles later, there it was again. Something you'd see or people you'd meet, it would just bring you to your knees and emotionally take you unbelievable places. So it was every day it would take you in each emotion, excitement, enthusiasm, depression almost sometimes, or you felt like you left the home and you know, a place that you will never see again. And then it would take you to highest highs, like, look at that. It's on, and each emotion would take you in different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exhausting almost.
Yeah.
You know, psychologically, it was exhausting some days. Almost every day, actually. But it was, so it would take you to each one of those levels, different times, different places, different emotions, different degrees of emotions. And it was kind of exhausting after that. I think after the 2 months, my mind said, okay, that's enough for a little while. I got to take a break. Really, you got to the point where you're like, okay, I need, and I think that maybe had played a key role into when I came home. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I needed to absorb that 2 months of excitement, thrills, scenery, people, riding physically, psychologically, emotionally. I think I needed a break from it in a sense where I just wanted to sit at home and absorb it all.
Yeah.
I
think part of that too comes like, because I've had that, not like nothing to your magnitude, but like we took this year, like we went out.
Each has his own perception.
Yeah.
Of what thing, or what thing. Did you hear that?
This year though,
I love that sound.
We went out to like a motorcycle park for the weekend. And like I said, it was nowhere like the length or the scale of what you did. But the whole time, like, it was a new place, and it was awesome the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was like heaven. And then we get back, and like I went with Mike and Colin. And when you get back, we all had the same thing. Like Monday, going back to work. Monday, you're in like a depression of like, fuck, man, we're not there.
Yeah.
And I feel like since you were there so long, that's probably what it was. Like you were saying, like it was just like this euphoria.
Well, yeah, it's just coming to sense now. Then that must have been it. It was in a euphoric state all
and
that
then
time.
you came back down, which was like coming home.
But you needed time to digest it all and absorb it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was times where I took for granted. I mean, I look back at my pictures of all the places, and just one picture will trigger my mind to go wild for the whole day, in a sense where like I remember that exact day. But when you're in that moment, some days you don't realize where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you just, I don't mean to say you take it for granted, but some days you don't like just absorb the whole thing until you're out of, like you said, till the next day or a week later or a month later, your mind goes back to that place, and it's like, holy cow, I was actually there.
Yeah.
And I remember that, and it was, but sometimes you don't appreciate it in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense.
And
but
then,
like you said, you're in this great place. You don't see you don't really absorb for what it is right then. But the next day, when you're back into reality,
yeah.
okay, oh man,
Yeah, and like you get back to reality and like it hits you, but then at the same time, like you're not there. And it's like, fuck, I could be there, but I'm here. Like I'm here sitting.
You want to turn the clock back.
Yeah.
Oh, don't I know too well.
I'm here sitting on my porch in my underwear drinking iced tea.
yeah. He would come home from work and he'd say, yeah, so-and-so asked you about you. Yeah, what's he up to now? I don't know. He's just sitting at home in his underwear on the front porch drinking iced tea every day when I come home.
So what you've talked about doing another one, correct? Or are you thinking about it?
Yeah,
Or
no, I'm not
what's
thinking
next?
about it. It's going to be done. No, I'm not just thinking about it. It's going to be done this spring. No matter what the cost, financially, it doesn't matter to me. What I always say is it took a piece of me. It really did, and that piece of me is still out there.
Mm-hmm.
And my concern is I'm sure it does this to everybody that does a trip like this. You get that fever in you where you got to do it again.
Yeah.
And now you look at it totally different. It's not going to be that new trip anymore.
Exactly.
But it's still going to be a trip like I'm going to look at it a lot differently. But what troubles me is two things. One thing really is I always said that solitude is a dangerous thing. You know, being out there on the open road by yourself with no agenda, no worries whatsoever. Okay? And there's reasons for that, but we won't go into that. But the other thing is, am I going to want to do this every year now? Is it going to be something I have to do it? Because I already saw this coming before I'd even left. You know, I analyzed in my mind how this is going to affect me. And part of me I told my son was, you know, am I going to be the same person when I come back? Oh, hell no.
Mm-hmm.
But is it ever going to leave me, you know, in a sense where am I going to want to stop this at one point?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe physically I'm going to have to. But it transformed me in a way that I can't explain in a sense. But anyway, so yeah, I have to do it again. I have to. Part of me's still out there. And I got to do it again and look at it totally different. And you will the second time you do it. But am I going to want to continue doing it?
And maybe not like...
And I'm not worried about that. I'll deal with it as it comes. But
I feel like a big fear is like expectations. Because like whenever you go somewhere or do something for the first time,
good point.
like you said, it is never ever the same.
Good, valid point.
And like I've had places or things that I do where like you hold it on that pedestal, and then you go back a second time or a third time, and you like never reach that.
Yeah, you never will, and that's why I said
Exactly.
the first time you'll never have that first time feeling.
Yeah.
With any trip,
Mm-hmm.
no matter where you go, because you want that excitement and that thrill and that euphoric state of mind when you go back, and it may not be there.
Yeah.
But I'm already mentally prepared for that.
Okay.
Yeah, my problem is I overanalyze things sometimes, and I look at that way ahead. Yeah. Yeah, don't be an asshole. No, no, and I do. I overanalyze things, and I look ahead. I look 3 weeks, a month, a year ahead of how I'm going to feel, how this is going to pan out, how I'm going to look at things. And I've already been down that road 100 times about how I'm going to look at this trip. And there is some bad points to it, like the pain of riding for 8-10 hours, the long, lonely. And don't be fooled. There's some long, hard, lonely roads on there, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but that
Sounds like an old folk song.
that euphoria keeps you going.
I believe it. What is it like? What is it actually like? How long was your average ride? Like actual ride?
There is
point
none.
eight?
There is none.
No. I'm saying though, like on average, like an hour, 2 hours, like what, or like do you?
Oh, well, that was the cool thing is you had no agenda. You didn't have any mileage you needed to put on. You had no place specifically you had to end up.
Well, what is that like on your body? Like
Oh, it
get,
wears
like,
on you. Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of like a rock star status where that well, no, I use that as a metaphor, so shut the hell up.
Dan the rock star.
Yeah, right. No, I use that as a. Now, where the hell were we? You got me sidetracked. No, I use that as a description is. You know, it's almost like a rock star status because every day you're going out and seeing some great, beautiful things, and that keeps you going.
Okay.
You know, that keeps that state of mind going. So you don't think about that. That's why I described it before. It's kind of like a kid kicking you in the shin when you were a little kid playing a great game and you're having a blast. Okay. And you don't think about the pain till the end of the day when you stop and slow down and sit down and you say, oh, yeah, that's right. I got kicked in the shin. Oh, now it hurts. That's how it is with this trip. You ride 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You wake up. The minute you wake up, you're on that motorcycle and you're riding until the end of the day when I wouldn't ride when it got dark. It was little too many crazy places. I was just worried about hitting shit. You know, too many animals out there. Yeah, and people. I wanted to see things. I didn't want to drive in the dark and miss anything in a sense.
Did you sleep?
Scenic wise. So that would keep you going. That would keep you in that euphoric state in a sense where you didn't think about the physical pain. At the end of the day, you're like, wow, I'm tired. I better get some sleep. And then the next day you'd wake up packed full of energy and off you'd go.
It's just what you're doing.
Yeah, you were so excited to see the next destination and see the next beautiful scenic spot.
Yeah.
And it was day after day. It wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop. Every time I'd see something like, okay, that was it. That was the thing that I saw. That sometimes it would be weird because I always say weird. Why do I keep saying that? It's always weird. Everything's weird. But no, I would let's say, let's take Colorado, for instance, Ouray, okay? I was in Ouray. There was a couple different passes that I wanted to go over that weren't over. Estes Park wasn't open because of the snow. Then Independence Pass wasn't open because of the snow. I got there. I wanted to time this thing. That was one of the key things. I wanted to time this thing where it wasn't too late in the summer or wasn't too early in the summer. And the reason was the snow in the Rockies.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it played a role because I was a week ahead in Estes and Independence Pass. So I had to go all the way down to Monarch Pass to get across the Rockies. But anyway, what the hell were we talking about? I love when that happens. What was the point?
I don't know.
My mind. No, this is the funny part about this trip, and this is why this happens. I get in this state of mind where I start talking about this trip. It takes me in a million different directions, and then I lose track of what I'm even talking about. It's crazy how it takes my mind to a million different places and how I felt in that whole trip. And usually this happens a lot. I totally forget about what the point was.
I mean, that's just Dan, though.
Yeah,
on
right.
a day-to-day basis.
I'll blame it on what I want to blame it on. You blame it on what you do.
All right. What about some people? You had to meet some characters.
Yeah. No, not really. A lot of nice people. You meet a lot of nice people, and in my last
Hey, don't break those.
in my last last post is you meet a lot of people, but rich, poor, black, white, it didn't matter. I don't care what you say about what I just said. I met a lot of people in a lot of different social, physical, geographical, diverse cultures, whatever. Everybody treated you equally the same. Now, take it for granted that I was on a trip. I was traveling across the country. They're inquisitive about that. Maybe when you live in those environments, there's things going on. But social media plays a key role in our problems, and in the news plays a key role in the problems in our society today.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
Well, people are getting caught up in shit that's like, I feel like part of the problem is they don't have something. I really feel part of the problem is they don't have an outlet like riding or some type of exercise or something. So then like they're like what they do to occupy their mind just becomes trivial and like ridiculous. Like arguing over like genders or like whatever you want to argue. So that's like what people. But instead,
it gets pathetic. And this is what I didn't want to hear when I came back.
Yeah,
I didn't want to hear all
instead
that
of like going out and like you're saying, exhausting yourself, and that's all you have to worry about. Like, and like you knew you were going to get up the next day, and that's what you were going to worry about. Instead of like someone assuming your gender or like some just ridiculous stuff like that. Like when you
social media crap.
When you look at stuff like that, you just like to me, it's like I really feel like most people they're just not doing enough, and they just like they have almost nothing better to do, but to do it. And I talk with people like
because that's all they have left, and that's what a trip like this does. It transforms you in a way where you don't let that dictate your life. You don't let that guide your thought process. Mm-hmm. Now you've been across the United States and you've seen every different type of person or small town or how people live or what they do for a living or what social status they are or financial status. It doesn't matter. You learn that doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to be in life? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And what really matters? Really, what really matters in life?
Yeah, instead of like,
are you going to be laying on your deathbed one day and say, "Hey, I got to go on social media, voice my opinion about something,"
or like white privilege, at your dying breath, you're bitching about white privilege, or like, have you seen this new thing of like?
I've learned a new what white privilege really means to others recently.
About just like we were talking about, like just being
born in the white privilege in America where anyway let's not get into that.
No, I don't mind it unless you really
it has really nothing to do with the trip, but we
don't strictly
really
have to talk about it unless that's your only goal.
No,
but my problem with that is like you're assuming like if someone's born white, like as soon as you're born you're given like someone's assessing you as soon as you're born just because of the color of your skin. And like
in all reality, it has some
truth
to it. And what I've learned recently, it has some truth to it. And that is that we have the opportunity to succeed. We have the opportunity to get an education in our health care. The opportunities in America versus a lot of other countries that don't have those opportunities. That's why they say white privilege.
Yeah,
we're born with a lot of privileges that we take for granted.
Yeah, no matter what. Yeah. Just being in America and having the First Amendment, which like didn't hit me until just the other day of like most countries, like what we're doing right now probably wouldn't fly. Like the fact that America is the only country where your freedom of speech is protected is like pretty like it really hit me. Of like you could go like just Canada. Canada doesn't have a law or like a lot of countries don't have a law that protect your speech, which is like I think people take for granted a lot.
Yeah.
And I think while it's taken for granted, it's also abused where people are just like spouting the first thing that comes to their mind without really playing around with whatever that thought is or coming at it from different angles or trying to look at it critically.
Gotcha. Let's get back to the trip.
All right. All right. So what?
Yeah,
what really got me? I think the one was the California coast. That seemed like one of the more breathtaking, kind of putting back, like riding right along that coastline there.
Yeah, that's where the screaming and the yelling and the laughing your ass off, tears coming to your eyes, laughing so hard, kind of situations came into play. Now you realize you have just crossed the country on a motorcycle. Not that it's epic to some, but to me, physically, it was like, okay, I'm here. It really sank in. Okay, now I'm in California on the coast. I am completely across the United States, and I'm looking at some of the most beautiful coastline in America. Breathtaking, unbelievable spots.
What was that stretch called? I forget. What was the name for the one? I think you posted a video of it where you're like riding. I'm pretty sure it's like somewhere up towards the northern part of California where you're actually riding, and you had a video of it on your Instagram.
Oh, I did a live thing?
I don't know if it was live. I think it was just a video. And I think there was a name for that stretch of highway there in California.
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell. I could look it up. But no, I think some of the best parts were above San Francisco. When you got above San Francisco, what I did was I went down into Southern California. When I got into California from Hoover Dam, I had left Hoover Dam, and I got into Southern California, and that was pretty cool. Then it started really sinking in. I'm in California. You'd see the canyons. You drive through the canyons. People would say, "Hey, I know this road. It's really windy." When you've been through California and riding wise, you would get to be like, "No, I'm sick of windy roads."
Yeah.
When you first got in there, it's the coolest thing because you're doing S-turns and horseshoes and everywhere you can imagine, the canyons. And then you meet people. You see these great motorcycle spots that were like famous California motorcycle restaurants and bars or whatever. Mm-hmm. Cook's Corner, Trabuco Canyon, yada, yada. There was a bunch of them where I stopped and just happened to bump into them. But when you got into California, it was pretty cool. But then my point was is I get into San Diego. I went up to Santa Ana to see some people I'd met, Cosmic Joe and Sandra Esposito. I met her on Instagram. It's kind of a funny story, but I met them on Instagram, and I got to know them. They let me stay with them. They took me around. They showed me around town. It was a great trip. I got to mention their name because they were just part of the coolest part of the trip. But then once I met them, they told me about some places on the way to Yosemite. So I came in the backside of Yosemite, which is the east side of Yosemite, and then crossed into Yosemite, going back out west towards the coast again. And then I drove straight over there to Bodega Bay. So I sort of skipped part of the California coast between San Diego and San Francisco, which is pretty cool. But I just didn't want the crowds. When you do a trip like that, I think, for me, the last thing I want to see is big cities and a lot of people. I want to see open lands, and I want to see small towns and cool places. And anyway, I saw a couple of those on the way from Santa Ana. I had left and then gone up Route 395 into Lee Vining, which is right on the east side of Yosemite. That's Yosemite. And then I crossed it through Yosemite. That is a blow your mind place. That just sets me back right now. I mean, I got goosebumps. I'm just thinking about it. But anyway, so then I went out to Bodega Bay. From Bodega Bay, then I rode up all the way up into the northern coast line of California.
And then like
up as far as I could on Route 1. And so right along the coast there. But I don't know if I know it has a name. It probably does. Maybe that's what you're thinking about. But
I can't remember exactly what I'm thinking about. I tried finding it on your Instagram. But then from California, it was up into Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon. I had expectations about Oregon that weren't met, but there were some cool things there that I saw that I would never saw. And I think there's things that I've missed too that I have to go back and see. That's why I'm going back. Another reason.
Yeah. That's
when you start looking at the map after a trip like that, you just start putting them in your favorites and you start marking them down, thinking you're going to go again, which I'm going to do anyway. But yeah, so then I went from there. I witnessed an earthquake.
really.
Yeah.
How big was it?
I just got into California. I stopped at this motocross track I saw on the side of the road. And I wheeled in there, and the lady says, yeah, just go in there. I was driving between the tracks over to where motorcycles come back across. It was Harley. It was kind of funny. Had a spectator spot. And then there was this guy in the booth at one of these jumps, one of these big jumps where they do the tail whips, you know.
Yeah.
And they're coming, and the guy has to be up in this, and a young kid was up in this, up in the stand watching, so in case there was a danger at the other end. Guy crashed. Anyway, I was talking to him. And all of a sudden, this earthquake. It was a 3 on the Richter, apparently. And I'm like, holy shit! He goes, oh yeah, that happens every day, or a lot. He didn't say every day. He said a lot. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'm standing there. The earth is shaking. My bike is shaking. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, pretty cool. I got into California. I witnessed our earthquake.
At least you weren't riding. You might not even have felt it. You think you
maybe I
felt
wouldn't have. I don't know. Because it was out in the canyons, in a sense, where it was open roads. You never know, though. Might have felt it, but either way, it was pretty cool to be standing on the ground.
So then
So anyway, I went from there down to San Diego. I stayed in San Diego for about 5 days. I had friends there.
So were you, like at that point you were staying with somebody?
Yeah. At that point, then between the last place I stayed with somebody was in Longmont, Colorado. But then I went down to San Diego, wiggled my way around down to San Diego through Joshua Tree National Park, Hoover Dam. Rays! Anybody who ever rode motorcycle out west knows Rays. Rays is this desolate little town in the middle of nowhere. And actually, I think it was a month or two before I got there, this guy had built this man-made rocket. And he launched himself from this rocket. I should have got a T-shirt. But I stopped in Rays. Rays is like this old abandoned motel. It's kind of like creepy kind of weird, but it's kind of the thing like you see in an old Western movie, like an old 60s or 70s motorcycle movie, whatever. Rays. Why, you pulling it up on the internet?
Like this one, right?
No, that's not it. Rays, put in Rays. You have Ray.
Rays.
Yeah, Rays. Rays Motel. Put in California, see if it comes up.
Independence. This one.
No, that's not it. No. Yeah, I'll show you the picture on Instagram.
Huh.
Put in California in there.
Where?
Rays Motel, California. Let's see if it comes up.
Can you stay in this place?
No, it's just an old... actually, you might be able to. No, that's none of those.
Is
right
it
there, Roy's.
Roy's.
Is it Roy's? Did I say Rays? Roy's. Yeah, I meant Roy's.
Wow, this looks like something.
Route 66.
Looks like something out of like a
Roy's Cafe. Yeah, it's something like out of a cool motorcycle movie, like an old chopper movie. Or something you see, or
like something
an
out
old mafia movie or something.
Or like that of the '60s or something like that. Interesting. And it's just abandoned.
Yeah, but if you look at it location-wise, it's the middle of nowhere. There's nothing around.
So it's just like...
You drive 50 miles and all of a sudden you come out on the Rays.
And that's it.
Little wiggly... Not wiggly, but long, deserty, hot roads. A couple little turns here or there. And then you pull up to Rays and there it is. And then all of a sudden you cross the railroad tracks and you wiggle your way back out through the mountains. And then off you go. Another 50 miles.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Look at it.
Yeah, you come into... and that's where I went. Let's zoom out a little bit. Zoom out, not that much. Joshua Tree. Then I went from there to Joshua Tree.
Okay, Joshua Tree.
Zoom out. Yeah, zoom out.
National Park.
I'm sorry. Your out is my in. here, and there's my out. Yeah, then I wiggled from there down through here in the Joshua Tree, down in the Joshua Tree, and that was pretty cool. Kind of another little town, kind of in the middle of nowhere, nothing around. Long, hard rides, hot. You know, you're worried about gas. You'll drive 60 miles, you don't see anything.
How at this point, like, what temperature were you riding in?
I think it was like 100, 110 in the day. Like when I pulled out of zoom in the Joshua Tree there. When you pull it in, I pulled out of 29 Palms that morning. Not actual Joshua Tree. I didn't stay in the town of Joshua Tree. I pulled out of 29 Pines, and it was cold. It was cold where I had a pair of winter gloves. But then you get in the daytime, it'd be 100 degrees.
Jeez.
Easy. I mean, there was times, and this was late spring. It was probably still 40 degrees here.
Mm-hmm.
I would think 50, maybe in the highs. But you would wake up, it'd be cold as hell in the morning. But then in the middle of the day, some of those roads felt like they just paved it, like that heat coming off of it.
Yeah.
But it was a dry heat. It was a different kind of heat than we have around here. Very humid around here versus there. But yeah, then I went down from there through Palm Springs, down into down and wiggled my way through the canyons, San Bernardino National Forest area kind of places through there, and I think I came down 371 there and down into San Diego. Eventually into San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah. I think I came through here, St. Isabel, Ramona, Lakeside, and then down into San Diego.
Home around Burgundy.
Yeah. I shouldn't have rushed that part, but I was excited to get to San Diego at that point.
And did you have friends? Is this where you had friends here?
Yeah,
no?
right in the heart of San Diego.
Okay.
Right in the heart of San Diego. They lived only a few blocks from center of town. Maybe about 10 blocks. It was kind of cool, near Coronado. And then eventually one day I went down to Tijuana, rode back, just a little day trip, up into, right in there to Silver Coronado. That's pretty cool, coming up 75. I went down Route 5, which sucks. Crazy people.
Isn't that what that's the traffic,
yeah,
right?
That's why you want to get the hell out of town. That's why I don't like the cities. You know, I'm a pretty seasoned veteran of drivers. I mean, we live near Philadelphia and New York City, and we're kind of accustomed to that crazy driving.
Oh, I've seen
you get
you in
there
Philly.
on a motorcycle, you got to be full aware.
I believe it.
You watch what the hell you're doing.
This drive,
but it was pretty cool coming up. Yeah,
this must have been a hell of a drive
from thing into Coronado. It's a beautiful ride, especially across the Coronado, the bridge, going back into San Diego. It's really cool.
Right here.
Yeah. Yep, Coronado Bridge. It's unbelievable.
That looks like it's a pretty big bridge, like long.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But it's beautiful scenery. I mean, the weather's beautiful. You get your 85 along the coastline. It's nice sunny days. Epic weather. You got your feet in the Pacific Ocean.
And then back up. What'd you take?
Well, I stayed in, where are we at here? Oh, eventually I went up Route 5 along the coast. Into Santa Ana, which is right outside of L.A.
I just saw it somewhere.
Yeah, keep going up north there through Agra.
Oh, here you go.
Yeah, Huntington Beach right there. Santa Ana should be right in here somewhere. Send one.
Where is L.A.?
Right
So here's
there,
L.A. Okay.
Santa Ana.
So we're right south of
Yeah,
LA.
and I met these people that Cosmic Joe and
Cosmic Joe.
And he's they're great people. They took me in there when I first got there. That night they both came home from work, and they wheel out this 1941 Woody wagon.
Whoa.
And they're like, "We're going for a ride. We're going out to eat." I'm like, okay, that was one of those. all the scenery and the Colorado Rockies, kind of on the same level. Like, this blows my mind. I met these people on the internet. We're going for a ride in a 1941 Woody, and we went for a ride. And then the next couple days later, they took me into Long Beach.
Look at that.
He took me. I know. How about it?
Wow.
Wheels that out. He wheels that out. Yeah. Did you see me riding around one of those?
I could see you.
I got this shit-eating grin on my face. It was unbelievable. Yeah,
Wow.
and I couldn't stop laughing, kind of, looking at this thing. I'm like, get the hell out.
It looks like, oh my Lord.
It makes me laugh just thinking about it. But they took me for a ride. We went out to eat, and then a couple days later, he took me up into Long Beach, I think it was. I don't remember exactly, but he took me up into one of the best California flea markets for motorcycles. It was like 6 football fields big of anything you could imagine motorcycle, except for like motocross bikes. It was mostly like helmets and parts and old parts and new parts and Harley parts and BMW parts and new and used and stickers and patches and jackets and clothes and anything you can imagine. But they would make it into like an epic. That would be like the ride of the day for most people that lived around there.
That was like the
Yeah,
destination.
they'd all hop on their motorcycles and they'd all bring them to show them off. It was almost like a motorcycle show. In a sense, in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You would see shit like you'd see on the Munsters, that 3-wheeled thing that they had on the Munsters.
Yeah.
You'd see stuff like that versus choppers that are drag pipes, that come way up in the back and flared and custom this and unbelievable motorcycles that you would only see in magazines. And guys would pull up in there like it's normal business on a Sunday,
another day,
once a month on this motorcycle swap meet. Yeah, it was blow your mind. But so he's like, you don't. Would you mind going to a flea market with us? I'm like, I'd love to go to a flea market. It's a motorcycle. Oh hell yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah. So when I got there, I would just videotape the whole time. It kind of was one of those cool things that's when I realized that this is one of the cool parts of the trip.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't notice it until you drive away, kind of thing. But anyway, so that when I left Long Beach, what had happened is that I can't think. There was a stretch of highway that was closed, leaving between Santa Ana and San Francisco. I wanted to take that road, but
just watch that. Mike's about to make sure that stays in that. There you go.
Unfortunately, there was a stretch along that highway, Route 1, that was closed. So I decided to, at that point, to take that from there, go east up into 395 right here into the Sequoias. Okay, zoom out, no, the other way. Your other out. Your other out, yeah. Oh, what I want to tell you was, there's Roy's. What I wanted to tell you was, everybody said, you got to go to Vegas. No. That's the last place on earth I wanted to go.
Yeah, I believe it.
Personally, I didn't want to see the crowd. They said an extra 300,000 people were in town, which is probably normal for them, but for some kind of convention, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to drive there just to take a picture. But anyway, I left Santa Ana, went up 395 into Sequoia National Forest area.
We're down. This is Mexico.
What?
You're pointing down, but you're telling me to go up.
Moved to Kings Canyon, 395. There was a cool spot here. Up 395, I'll tell you what, that was the hottest. Because you'd get in the spots where you make one right turn, you're into Death Valley. Right here. Panamint Springs, right there, 395. Alancha. And you'd see all these roads that would take you to, and it was into Death Valley, but it was hot. I'm like, I really wanted to go to Death Valley, but I heard some stories, but I wasn't afraid of those stories, but I thought that was a long road. It was the middle of the day. I would have to stay in there, and there's not many places to stay along that route. And I thought I just wanted to get to Yosemite at that point. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to just drive, 2 days to just to see Death Valley, which probably would have been cool. I think on my next trip, I'm definitely going to do it. But
And where exactly is Death Valley at?
right here.
Oh,
Right here.
Death Valley National Park. There it is.
It's on the eastern border of California. But I wanted to get up into Bishop there, that was pretty neat, in Bridgeport area, right there. We see Lee Vining right there by the lake. But there, that takes you into Yosemite, and I left there. It was so this road 395 going up into there. I mean, hot. You couldn't stand any hot. Like, does it get any hotter than this kind of hot? That bike isn't water cooled, liquid cooled. Anyway, it was very hot, and I got up in the Lee Vining. The next morning, I woke up, and that was one of those winter gloves kind of morning. Freeze your ass off. But the beauty going up 120 into Yosemite, mind-blowing pictures, stuff you see on postcards. But now you're living in the moment. You don't see it as a postcard. You just pull over. Every little nook and cranny was mind-blowing, cool. But you wanted to. The sad part is that you tend to, on a trip like this, even though you got all the time in the world, you tend to rush it because you're so excited to see the next corner.
Yeah.
Like, look at this. Oh my God. And then you're like, I got to get around the next corner and see what's there. But then you realize you should have just taken your good old time.
Did you have did you have like a time you were going to be back by, or like?
No.
So it was.
I thought a month or two. I figured about 2. So I took my time as far as that goes. But it was so exciting that I wanted to keep going every day. But that sort of was a bad thing, like I said, whereas sometimes you'd rush through things because every day, just driving through Yosemite, I mean, every corner there was a scenic spot or something you see, like the old Wild West kind of feeling.
Yeah, it looks.
It would take you mentally back, hundreds of years.
I mean, it looks, for those listening, if you go Google Maps and look up Highway 120 in California through Yosemite, it literally cuts right through the national park. And you can just see on Google Maps, like, these peaks and stuff. I'm sure this is all what you're talking about, of just, like, mind-blowing.
The videos, actually, surprisingly enough, the iPhone videos that I took really gives you kind of a sense of what it's about when because sometimes you'll see videos on somebody's iPhone or whatever, and you don't really grasp the value of what's there. But some of those videos coming around, like I would video coming around the corner, and then scan it and move the phone side by side or film behind me. It really kind of does it justice in a sense. It was one of those places where I don't think you could have filmed it wrong in any way.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. Yosemite was probably one of the best. But I was always looking forward to eventually, 2 places was where I laid the bike over was, where they found the gold was, why can't I think of the name of the place?
In California?
Yeah. It's on the tip of my tongue. Angels Camp. It's right there.
Whoa.
It was right there. Angels Camp. It's called, why can't I think of the name of it? Okay. Anybody out there help me? That's a joke. Where they found the, what's the name of that town? Come on. Where they found the gold? Started the gold rush. Damn. Anyway, that's where I went.
Oh boy.
It's Sutter's Mill.
Sutter's Mill.
Sutter's Mill. Thank you. Sutter's Mill. So I went to Sutter's Mill. I always wanted to go there. I always had an interest in the gold rush, and read books on it, and it always intrigued me of how those people lived. And I always said I was born too late. But that was where I went from Yosemite. But once I got there, it was really nothing. There was a lot of business between there and Bodega Bay.
So I'm assuming, I was going to say, by right, you mean left.
Bodega Bay, I knew somebody, a friend of mine's sister lives there, Paula. and there's nothing. I'm sure there's stuff to see, but once you've been through Yosemite, you don't really want to look at a whole lot of Sacramento, California, that kind of thing. But Bodega Bay is a pretty cool spot along
Right
the
on
coast.
the coast.
Yeah, and that's where I say that's above. That's about an hour and a half above, somewhere around there, above San
Sacramento.
Francisco.
Oh,
So I stayed there for a week. Visited San Francisco when I was staying in Bodega Bay. Just went down there for the day, you know. Saw the tram, the bridge, Lombard Street.
yeah, that really
whatever you
windy.
see touristy wise. I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here.
That's not Dan's cup of
I
tea.
got to go back to. Well, it isn't once you get. I mean, it's nice, but once you did a trip like this and you've been in the scenic areas, you don't really want to go to cities too much. You want to stay away. I tended to stay away from them. You know, Chinatown, the whole nine. I saw the whole nine in a day. Enough of what I want to see for the time. But you get up into Eureka, and way up there through the California redwoods, Avenue of the Giants, coolest places, mystical places.
That's where I really.
Yeah.
I'd love to get redwood.
Eureka is not a place to go, though. They call it your tweaker.
What is that supposed to mean?
The tweakers.
Oh.
If anybody knows what a tweaker is, they'll know what I'm talking about.
If-
It's like zombie land.
If
and
not-
it's no lie. Everybody had warned me about Eureka when I got to California. They asked me which way I'm going, and I told them. They said, "Oh, you're going through Eureka," and I would always ask why. And I've learned that the tweakers were up there. Tweakers are meth addicts, and they're zombies, and it's no lie. It is everything everybody described. I didn't really think about it a whole lot, but when I got there in the morning, they're out there, and I don't try to opinionate myself on people like that, but it was kind of
Just prop that mic up there for me.
it was kind of
No.
scary in a sense where I'm a guy who could walk the.
Like turn it up.
It's okay. What's the matter?
There you go. It gives better audio. There you go.
Oh, it
That's
does?
better.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm kind of guy where I mean, you and I both know we'll walk the streets in New York City, Times Square in the middle of the night. Of course, that's crowded, but we'll walk in certain places in New York City where we're not really worried.
Yeah.
But and most people look at, oh my God, New York, it's crime. No, it's not. But you walk in Eureka in the morning and there's tweakers walk around, it's kind of creepy. It's like, I got to get the hell out of here. Kinda creepy. Those people have no mind, and they don't know who they are or what they're doing on this planet in a sense. But it's kind of weird because they say a lot of people up there. I don't know what draws them up there. Right there,
Your
tweaker. I
tweaker.
found it. But I don't know what the big deal is up there. Why they're all.
Reference to the
Up
huge
there.
amount of tweak and twackers in Eureka.
But they're all over. They're all over. I've seen most of them are in California. No offense against California, but you see them down in San Diego, San Francisco. But when you get Eureka, there's a lot of them, and it's a place where you don't want to walk the streets at night. It's kind of scary.
California is just a liberal place like that.
Yeah, it is. But the whole stretch from Klamath all the way down to the Redwood National Forest, unbelievable coastline views, little towns, coastal little towns, cool. Yeah, really wildly cool. That was always one of my biggest destinations in the back of my mind was, I think ultimately that was the destination in a sense in my mind, was the California redwoods. I always loved the redwoods. A lot of memories from old times. So anyway, yeah, from there I kept going up Route 1. Then you get on Route 101, which still is on the coast. And I got in Oregon, and I didn't want to go all the way up to Seattle. And I got up in Oregon, not all the way up to Coos Bay. Just far enough, I think it was Eugene. I crossed into Eugene. Or Coos Bay. I went through Coos Bay, but I went up and crossed and started going east. And that was another kind of point in the trip where I realized that at that point, I thought, shit, I'm heading east now.
Mm.
I'm finally heading east. And something sank in. That's where the sort of little bit of excitement, but yet depression set in. Like you said, you get back to work. Some days it's like, oh shit, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah, weekend's over.
I'm not headed out to California tomorrow. Now I realize I'm headed back.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some sort of, good feeling about it because I've seen a lot, and I still have people to see along the way, kind of thing. But I didn't want to go up in Portland or Washington State at all. I mean, there's a lot of cool things to see up in there, Seattle. There's a lot of beauty to see on the roads. But I think at that point I was kind of tired of windy, curvy, mountainous roads, believe it or not. Once you've been through the Rockies and been through the canyons of California and up along the coastline, you're like, okay, I just want some kind of Pennsylvania sort of windy roads, long curves, little hills, after a while it kind of gets old. Everybody, and I'd get up in Oregon, I'd say, hey, because you always talk to people like, what's the best road? What's out here? And you'd ask a lot of questions. And everybody say, oh, I know this windy road going up there. No, I'm sick of windy roads.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with the windy roads. Just give me something Pennsylvania style. Nice, openly kind of, little turns, long radiuses, real long radiuses kind of turns. But it was still cool. Then I went through, where did I go from there? Oregon, Bend. Through Bend, I got an oil change, and then kept going there to Boise, which is right over here. Boise, and then eventually my real destination was Yellowstone. It's Yellowstone and Bozeman, Montana.
Bozeman, Montana. Isn't that where the Testicle Festival is?
Not Bozeman, but between the north entrance of Yellowstone and Bozeman. It's about a 2-hour ride, 2.5 hours between the north entrance of Yellowstone into Bozeman. And if you come down this way, it's called Emigrant. That's where that's where that thing that interests you is the Testicle Festival.
Emigrant, that's
right here. If you go up this way through the north entrance, right, so there you go. So there it is.
That's where your hat's at. The is it? The Old Saloon.
Old Saloon, yeah.
Emigrant.
Old Saloon, cool little place, middle of nowhere kind of town. You pull in, it's a little village, and they just have like a bakery, a tiny little church, and a bar, and with the old swinging doors in the saloon, and then. And they had a band outside. It was pretty cool. A lot of people wearing, right there it is. Get the hell out.
Wow.
Yeah, the old windows. And it was a cool, right there it is. That's it. That's all the town right there. That little stable.
It looks like something from like a Western, like a little main strip.
Yep.
With the saloon. Established 1902.
Actually, that doesn't look right. Something's a little screwy there.
Oh, boy.
They still have, that might be different, but they had the old posts where you tie your horse up.
Uh-huh.
It was just a stone parking lot. That looks a little weird, but
I don't know.
Little stone parking lot, that doesn't look like it.
I mean, your hat says 1902.
Yeah,
and this is
something's
saying
weird.
1902.
That doesn't look right. I'll show you the picture I got. Doesn't match that. Why is that?
Something's fishy. Wow.
Yeah,
just from Google Maps,
strange.
If you type in Old Saloon or Emigrant, Montana, and pan, you can just see the mountains.
That's just a small taste.
I know, that's what I'm saying, though, but just this small little bit. And that's probably Dan right there on his bike.
That might be. Except there's somebody on the back. There was nobody on the back of mine. That doesn't look right. There's something a little weird there. That doesn't look like it. For some reason.
Whoa. But anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a cool little spot. There I went north through Yellowstone. First through Jackson, I went down into Jackson and come up through the Sierra Nevadas into Yellowstone, and eventually ended up in Bozeman for about 5 or 6 days, and used that as sort of a hub. Went down through Yellowstone 2 different ways. That's pretty breathtaking of a place.
Yellowstone.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those gotta see, but you gotta spend a week there. You gotta spend at least a week.
I mean, it's massive.
It is. It's big.
It's maybe like
big.
an eighth the size of Wyoming. I never really realized it was that big.
Yeah, pretty cool scenery. Pretty cool scenery. You're driving through there, you see the bison or buffalo. You're driving between them. There's buffaloes on each side of the motorcycle. You think they're gonna kill you if you move the wrong way.
Did you get into Jackson at all?
Yeah, I stopped in Jackson. I almost got a ticket. Cop, I pulled over to take a picture. I didn't stop. I just wheeled through, but I stopped to take a picture of right in the center of Jackson, just to take a picture of those arches in the center of town. In the park, they have this little, tiny little, yeah, there you go, little park with all the antlers. Everybody knows it that's ever been there or ever looked into Jackson. Just to take a picture, and that's it. And then I got out of town. It was sort of touristy.
I could see it. And that's pretty
It wasn't
amazing.
real high touristy at the time because it was springtime. People were just, before kids got out of school kind of thing. And that's the cool thing about that trip was that's the other thing I wanted to beat timing-wise. I didn't want to deal with the traffic of, Yosemite, Bryce Canyon, Zion, places like that when all the kids got out of school and everybody was taking a vacation. I beat all that traffic.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to deal with it. So it got kind of touristy in Jackson. I'm like, there's nothing I want to see here, really. I'm sure there's a lot of cool things to do. Spend a day if you're with somebody or whatever, and you're hanging out. But I didn't want to hang out. I was too excited to get to the Sierra Nevadas. And Yellowstone.
Did you Wind River Reservation?
No, I didn't. I thought about going west the way that takes you through Du Bois. There's some pretty cool spots along there. But once you get out in the middle of Wyoming like that, over towards Casper and places like that, there's not compared to Yellowstone. No, there's no match.
Mm-hmm.
There's no match. No match whatsoever. And so then and plus I had a destination in Bozeman, which was pretty cool because I went north into Butte, and I also went to north from Bozeman into like no man's land.
Isn't Montana supposed to just be like not much, nothing?
It pretty much is.
That's cool.
And that's the cool part about it.
Yeah.
What you imagine when you hear and see pictures of Wyoming is everything it is when you get there.
Nothing.
It's everything of beauty, open land, big sky, and nothing but beautiful green country.
And nobody around.
Creeks that we call them creeks, rivers, whatever. Creek. But creeks with beautiful, clean, flowing water, ice cap or snow cap peaks, unbelievable beauty, open country, just like you imagine.
Yeah.
Even better when you're physically there. That's exactly what it is, especially in the Yellowstone area. Anywhere around Yellowstone, it's that way. And I'm sure there's other places like it, but you're in that moment, I'm in Yellowstone. I'm on the outskirts. I'm in Bozeman, Montana. Another mind when you sit down and just think about it.
Well, and why was Bozeman such a destination? What was there?
Well, Bozeman, I guess, gives that impression when you hear just the name Bozeman. I mean, if you've never been there, you imagine what it's like.
Sounds westerny.
It is, but
yeah,
it's
look
still
at the pictures
it's still
that
kind
come
of that's on the outskirts. It's still westerny. But you get in the town, you can see the improvements. The
Is this
you know,
where
you see the Starbucks and the cafes and the little cool little places, but it's a destination for most people in Montana.
It still looks like it's like old timey though.
It sort of is, but when you go into town and you see the heart of town, you got the fancy little restaurants, the high tech restaurants, and coffee shops and whatever. But it's still on the outskirts, just outside of that stretch. It's still the old Montana.
And is this where you went live on Instagram that one day?
No. I did in the center of town.
I think so.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I tried it for a little bit. That was one of the sucky parts of this trip, is that all the epic places that you like want to go live on Instagram, you can't because you got no reception.
Yeah.
All the coolest little mountainous roads in the secondary towns, they're like, shit, there's no reception.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to videotape it.
I think you're one of the only people that I like voluntarily ever went on their Instagram live video, because I was laying in bed.
What do you mean by voluntary?
Like I was like, usually I don't give a damn. Most people are just like, oh hey, I'm out here, we're out here. But I was laying in bed, and for some reason I had my phone on me, which I usually don't like once I go to bed. But it was like Lieutenant Dan went live on Instagram, so I was like, he's on his trip.
It was probably 5 or maybe 7 at night or something. I don't.
Yeah, so like 3 hours back, it was like 10 around here.
Yeah.
So like, and I was like, oh, like this has got to be good. I haven't seen him, and I know this trip was legendary. So I checked in, and that's when we got going.
Legendary.
It's legendary to me.
It was legendary
and most people
to me
that don't
too.
do something like this.
And that gets back into the thought process of the motorcycle thing. I didn't do this to meet women. I didn't do this to become a rock star status. I didn't do this because I wanted an image. I didn't have a midlife crisis. I did this because I needed to just clear my mind. And one, it was an opportunity of a lifetime that I could not pass up.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I love riding bikes, and two, I have these 8 people around this nation, which was a perfect loop time-wise as far as weather goes, and location-wise. And they were great people, and they were great stops too. Every place I stopped, and all the people that I knew that to meet, to see again. But there weren't all the reasons that everybody thinks I took this trip. The reason is because I had the opportunity. I love riding that motorcycle, and this was the perfect time. I knew it was a long trip, and I knew it might take something that maybe I don't have in me. I said, I'm going anyway. I don't give a shit. I am getting on that bike, and I will see through this thing. And it wasn't a mental hurdle. Like, here's what I talked about with my son was, most people look at this trip like, oh, what do I do when I get here? Oh, can I do the whole trip? No, I didn't think about any of that. I didn't think about like how long it would be, how long it would take me. Do I have the physical endurance to do this trip? No, it was a no-brainer for me. It was simply a no-brainer. Not one hurdle came into place, and it was almost kind of scary because of that. Because like there's nothing I'm worried about in a sense. Being alone, being out there in the open road, where am I going to get gas? Where am I going to stay? Where am I going to go? Am I going to have this, or is something going to happen? I didn't care. I didn't care. There was nothing standing in my way. Not a one thing. And I don't care what it was, why I would have jumped over that hurdle to get to the destination. And it would have been enjoyable. That might have made it more fun if I would have had problems. But it had not one problem whatsoever that came up and stood in front of me that said that I was concerned about. Not one. It was almost scary.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was almost scary. Kind of weird, but
makes me want to just hearing you talk about it.
So my point to anybody who's thinking about a trip like this, just get your credit card, fill it up with gas, and get the hell on the road. It's as simple as that. It really is. It's as simple as that. People say that was an unbelievable trip. No, it really wasn't. It was easy. It really was. It was so easy. It was kind of worries me. It were enough that I have to do it again. That's how easy it was for me. But now I think about those physical aspects of it, like, holy shit, that's going to be a long trip now. Now I look at it like, that's going to be a long trip.
Yeah, but it's now sitting here, it's not, it is what it is. It was worth it.
I hate that saying. It is what it is. It ain't what it ain't.
They mean the same thing. Well, on that note.
No, anyway, so in a nutshell, that was, it was a life changer. You come back different person. You look at, like we talked about earlier, you look at things differently. Things that meant a whole lot to you or concerned you or you're worried about, you don't think about those things. Right? You even forget what they were. You don't even remember what the hell you were worried about before.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what's the point of that? But you look at people that worry about the things that you did before and like, what the hell's the matter with you? Do you see what you're worried about? Do you see what you're stressing out about? Do you realize what matters? And that's the effect it had on me. And I'm not saying it's going to have the same effect on everybody, but for me, that was changed a lot. Changes your perspective on life, you know? You see what's out there. You see how rough people have it. You see how good people have it. You see the opportunities out there that you have in our nation. And the possibilities that you are endless of what you can do in this country. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, yeah, a big life changer.
There you have it. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
What do you say? That's an hour 45.
That seemed like 20 minutes to me.
Well, you
what else? What? There's got to be one more thing we can point on in this trip, and zoom out on the map for a second there.
Zoom out or in?
What sucked is one thing. Okay, so one aspect of it is it's not as glorified as you think sometimes. I mean, there's some times where I was on the road in Kansas for hours and you didn't even see anybody. You'd pull up to these intersections and you'd see road signs in four-way, okay, four-way stop sign. You look in four different directions. You could park in the middle of that intersection and sit there for an hour and nobody would come by. I mean, just like you see in the movies. Or you'd pull in this little town and you'd see the water tank, like you see in the old 60s movies, 70s movies, and you'd see the old water tank and everybody parking on an angle on each side of this town, and pretty cool. But it was hard. There was some days it was real hard. The rain. I mean, coming back from Chicago, take for instance, the rain beating on you. It feels like needles sticking in your face for hours. And nowhere to go because you couldn't. Yeah, it didn't matter where you went. The rain was coming down, or the wind through Kansas was 60 miles an hour sideways for hours upon hours, and it was brutal. It was harsh on you. Sometimes the sand in California would hit you in the face for hours.
Oh.
Long, hard, lonely roads in Kansas of nothing. Okay, it wasn't always fun. There was days when it was brutal, as far as riding a motorcycle goes. But some days it was tough, lonely, hard, tough, straight, hot roads, deserties, whatever the case may be. But it was amazing how around every corner, though, there would be something that would blow your mind. People you met, things you saw, or the experience of where you were at that moment, that you'd realize there was always something that kept you motivated to keep on rolling.
Yeah, like all that stuff sucks, but it's like you were saying, that's the kick in the shin when you're playing soccer.
Yeah, that's right. You look through those. You didn't take them. You didn't use them as hurdles. You used them as sort of. It made it really. How should I say it? It made you appreciate those moments, those better moments.
Mm-hmm.
When you'd come on to something, you're like, "Holy cow! It was for a reason."
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So if you're into that touring thing, and you love riding, even the least bit, it's something I highly recommend to anybody. I pushed it on my son, and I actually told him that now I mapped the whole thing through what's it called? The app,
Google
Map My
Maps?
Ride.
Oh, okay.
Map My Ride, and so Map My Drive. But it follows you to pinpoint accuracy to where you've been every stop, every gas station, whatever. You could zoom in. It's pretty cool. So anyway, so my point to him was, now you have to follow that route. It gives you a route to lean on and a reason why you got to go now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it.
That's it?
Yeah, that's kind of it for now.
For now? Till next time.
Well, we'll do another one sometime. We'll focus on something else. But, I mean, I could go on and on about topics of people I met and places you've been and things you've seen. And I didn't really want to focus on that. I wanted to focus on of the aspect of the riding. If I think we even did, I'm not sure. But what the effect it has on you personally. I think most of the topic of this one.
I think kind of like you're saying, there's details and things, but like for any individual, the most it means is for someone to get out and do it themselves.
Yeah. It's not so much the riding, it's how it changes you personally.
Mm-hmm.
Is really what it meant to me. And I didn't realize that till halfway into the trip, of how it transforms you and how it changes your life. And what we need to focus on rather than all the bullshit that we deal with, or simple little problems that we think are major and really aren't, you know. But it's good stuff.
There you have it.
Get rid of your therapist and take a motorcycle ride.
You heard it here, folks. Dan Fritzinger. Thank you. And until next time, peace.